How pleased have you been with the start so far? 2 games in.
Yes, Saturday was enjoyable. You know, it was a good result. Good to get a win in your first game, and good for the whole team to get back to winning ways. And then Tuesday, I thought we were very solid. Obviously, at the end of the game, you're tinged with disappointment because you've let in a last-minute goal, like literally the last kick of the game. But when you've subjected them to hitting 35-yard shots in the 95th minute or whatever it was, I think you can be pretty happy. I mean, without seeing the goal again, I don't think there's much we could have done with the goal. You know, like I say, guy hitting it from 35 yards in the last seconds of the game, you're pretty much saying to him, go on, shoot, because if it goes in from there, you know, it's well played to him. I think the only qualm about that was you know, we're a bit naive with closing the game out. Really, I think we could have done that better. That was the only side to it I saw that we could have done a bit better, and that was, you know, killing the game off. And that's really been the only disappointment in the 2 games since I've been here, really.
And Shawn Howard certainly seems to be benefiting from having you alongside him up front.
Yeah, you know, has done well, done really well. He's taken his goals superbly. You know, he won on Tuesday night and again on Saturday. Hopefully, I'm freeing up a little bit more space for him. You know, taking the emphasis off him. You know, having to win all the balls up there. I'm hopefully helping him out and you know, giving him a bit of extra space to be able to put the goals in that he has done. So, you know, once we can work a little bit more on the training ground together and with the other forwards we've got, you know, it should hopefully start paying off a little bit more. And then, you know, I obviously need to get myself into the position to start scoring some goals as well. So, you know, hopefully it's boding well for the future.
And you must hope that the manager goes with the 2 of you up front again as you go away this week, because last 3 games in a row have all been at home.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's the gaffer's decision on which way he wants to go with who he plays. I can only speak for myself and say, you know, I want to be involved in every game that we have. So, you know, it'd be nice if he kept the partnership. But if he changes it, it'll be for a reason that he thinks is the best for the side. So, you know, you've got to go with that. And we'll see where he goes on, you know, either on the day or when he sort of works on it on the training ground today or tomorrow. So I think no matter who plays with who, the side are good enough to go out and get 3 points. So you know, I don't think it's relevant about who plays. It's more for the benefit of the side in the whole, really.
And Dagenham, of course, the club where you made your name, so presumably it's going to be pretty special going back there.
Yeah, I mean, I love that place. Pretty much from when I first stepped through the doors there, my first real professional club. I had great times there. I mean, I joined them in the conference and left in League One. So, you know, only got sort of special memories from being there. Really enjoyed it. Can't speak highly enough of the manager, John Steele, and his assistant Terry Harris. You know, got so much respect for both of them and how they've you know, shaped me as a player and how they progressed my game from when I first joined them to when I left them. So, you know, that place will always hold sort of special memories for me, and you know, it's just nice to go back. I've never played back at Victoria Road since I left. I played them a few times for my new clubs at their grounds, but never gone back. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to it, and you know, hopefully it'll be a good occasion.
And because he's been there so long, how much is Dagenham just dominated by the personality of John Steele? How much is the club all about him?
Yeah, it is. You know, it's everything about the club has got his stamp on it, and he's you know, he's a special manager because there's not many clubs where, you know, have the same sort of mould as Dagenham do. You know, where the manager literally, you know, the chairman's brilliant because he lets him get on with everything. Lets him have the rule of the club, really, and it works for him. You know, the way he brings players in, develops them, and then ultimately sells them on. They're probably one of the best run clubs in the Football League. You know, you see how many clubs are in financial turmoil and insecurity these days, and Dagenham have never been in that position because they only spend what they've got, and that's down to Steele really. He doesn't go overboard. He doesn't spend what the club haven't got, and you know, I think he's personally I think he's one of the best managers in the lower leagues.
I'm sure you keep an eye on the results. How much of an interest do you take, though, in terms of who's there and what they're doing, and can that help you this Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, they're the first result I look for really, and I always try and go back and watch them as much as I can when I'm not playing. So I know I'm like the back of my hand really. I know how they play. I know what they like doing. I know what they don't like doing. So you know, in that respect, it should be used to my advantage really, and any sort of way I can find of getting one over on them, and you know, trying to get the ball in the back of the net. You know, I'll use, because say if there's any club I know about, it'll be Dagenham and Redbridge.
Fingers crossed, good man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, how did you end up signing for Dagenham? Because you're from over that way, aren't you? And you're playing for non-league or lower non-league clubs. So how did they sort of get you to go there?
Well, I was at the time I was playing for a club called White Ensign, who are in the Essex Intermediate League, and because I was doing quite well there and scoring a few goals, the manager of Southend United at the time, Steele, asked me to go and play a reserve game for them. So I went down and played a reserve game for them, done well, scored, and then played another one, done well and scored again. And in the time of doing that, I got another call from Dagenham and Redbridge. It wasn't John Steele, but it was their first team coach down there, and said, "Look, we've seen you in the reserve game. John's seen you. He likes you. You know, any chance you can come and play a reserve game for us?" So, you know, obviously with nothing concrete at Southend at the time, I went and played for them, and did well, and they liked what they saw, and you know, offered me a contract literally after the game. So, you know, I had a little think about it, not knowing whether Southend would offer me anything or not. I signed the contract with Dagenham, and that's how it came about, really.
Yeah. How old were you then? Because did you ever think your chance was going to come in the league? Because you like you said, you were playing quite a few levels down.
I was 24 at the time, so it was, you know, it was late as far as footballers are concerned. I'd literally, I'd given up playing. I mean, I had a job in the City of London as a trainee accountant, so you know, it was not something that I'd thought about that I was ever going to get a chance of doing. So when it's finally offered it to you, there was conference at the time, and the wages weren't great wages. I mean, I remember having to take a cut from the wages I was earning in London. So, but you know, ever since I was like 12, 13, I wanted to be a footballer. So, you know, when I was offered the contract, I sort of jumped at it.
Yeah, for them to get in the league was a good achievement, but for a club like that to get into League One, that's just unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, from when I joined, like, we kept progressing every year, and when we got promoted, I thought that was brilliant. And then the year after we got promoted, we stayed in the league in League Two, and we stayed up on like one of the last games of the season. I thought that was brilliant. I thought, what achievement that is to stay in the league. And then we pushed on, and the next year we were close to the playoffs, and we just missed out on the playoffs on the last game of the season. I thought, wow, that progression that is. And then the year after that, we went and got promoted in the playoffs, and you know, that was just unbelievable how we managed to do that. My only real regret, I mean, I don't have many for Dagenham regrets, but my only real regret was not being able to have that season in League One with them. You know, I'd played, you know, a part in getting them from the conference to League One. And my only regret is not really getting the chance to play in that season in League One. But you know, when a club like Cheltenham come calling, it's very hard to turn down with the size of the club they are and the history they've got, and the possibilities of progression they had. So I thought, you know, best if I turned that down, I'd never really get the chance again, and I'd probably regret that even more.
Yeah, you scored against them for Swindon last year, didn't you? I think at the county ground, like you said. But
yeah. First
time back there, expecting a decent welcome from their fans who haven't seen you back there since you left on the pitch.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I always had good. I always had a good relationship with the supporters. Really, I think they saw me as one of their own. You know, especially someone who's come from real non-league football. So Dagenham was my first professional club, and having achieved so much with them, I hope I get a decent reception. I didn't leave on bad terms, you know. So yeah, I'm expecting not to hear any boos really, but maybe if after the game, if I've scored a couple, then I might get a few boos. But hopefully there'll be a good reception. I'm looking forward to going back there and seeing some familiar faces anyway.
Yeah, you were keen to get back into accountancy after when you found out you were playing boots eventually, or was that something you sort of forgotten about now, or was it something you'd like to?
No, I'd never say never. It's not something I'd really look to go back into after playing. I'd like to try and stay in football in some capacity or another. Now I've got into it and I've got a taste for it. I want to try and stay in it as long as I can, either on a coaching side or something else. But it's always nice to have the option to go back to. You know what I mean? A lot of footballers who are footballers, from the age of 16, 17, don't really have a fallback once they've finished playing. So it's good that I've got this sort of qualification behind me to go into if I need to. I say I've done it differently to many other footballers in the way I've come into it, but probably wouldn't change the way I've done it.
Yeah.